Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm gonna review a movie that I had seen on Tubi. I have seen on Tubi, called Maggie. Recently, I heard at some time ago there was a time where Arnold Schwarzenegger was, I think like tweeting or doing some video with Norman Reedus. I think at like a Lakers game or something like that, and they were both together, and Arnold at one point mentioned that he had fought zombies just like Norman Reedus had. And I was just like, okay, when is it that Arnold has ever fought a zombie before? I don't remember that at all. And so ultimately, I had just so happened to be just like harping away on the fact of like, when has Arnold ever fought zombies before? When has he fought zombies? When has this happened? I don't remember any movie he's ever done that talks about that. Well, surefire enough, I just so happened to pick up this movie Maggie because I'm like, well, I've been wanting to see this movie for a while, and it looks like it had a really good cast, and it has a really great cast. And I've just wanted to know what the F this movie was about because I didn't look into the description of what it was. I saw Arnold, I saw his co-stars, and I was like, okay, this looks really interesting just um via the fact that it's like, okay, I've seen so many Arnold movies, like, but I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is about. Yada yada yada. So when I say Arnold is taking out some zombies in this film, I'm not saying that this movie is an action film. It's a very slow, sad drama movie. And if you haven't seen the what specifically the genre entails, um, so uh, before we go into this movie in a very non-spoiler and then spoiler variation of it, of course, in between, I'm going to give you a double five count to let you know that I'm going to go and spoil this movie. Before we get into that, I just want to quick mention that down in the link in the description below, you can go to donate to this channel. Especially for a lot of times, it's mostly just for mention of technical reasons, to just get eventually a better setup, or to set this channel up with just a better kind of maybe subscription kind of avenue, if people want me to view certain things, or maybe donate if they want me to review certain kind of movies and or shows. Um, so what is Maggie in a non-spoiler variation? Well, I already mentioned that this movie is about zombies. You can kind of get the gist of that through probably a trailer at some point. Yeah, this movie, I would really say it's about family. This movie feels very much a movie about family and how, and again, this movie doesn't like, it feels very slow. It feels kind of like very like deserted. Every place that these people go to, it's very deserted. There's not a lot of people there and whatever and what have you. Um like this feels very like small town and everybody knows everyone, and ultimately everyone is looking out for everybody. Um it's not just something where Arnold is going to go around and kill 20 zombies and just be like, yeah, ooh, yeah, great. No. Like every like the amount of zombies that appear and are attacking zombies aren't very many. Um Most of this story is just teeter on like what's going on in society, what's going on. You have people that aren't affected mixed in with people that are affected, and how do they view what's going on. Um, Reasonably, you have a bunch of doctors and policemen that are just like, okay, maybe we should quarantine these people off that are infected. Especially once it seems like they really come down to having like time to just be like, yeah, we're looking out for the entire town. But ultimately, I really like this small town like thing. I don't like that this is like such like like I like that this is very like small town approach to zombies infection. Cuz ultimately that like once you kind of get into the bigger towns, you get like 30 zombies all in one room, and now you have to I have to stab 30 zombies, and oh gee, now I'm going to open a door and close a door and then have 30 other zombies in that room, and just stab and hack my way. It's just good god. Um just an overwhelming amount of zombies in a movie. Like I like that this is very like small proportioned cuz this is a small town. This movie honestly does bring back the fact that these zombies were people, and there should actually be some kind of care about it. There should be some kind of like remember that these people are people, not look at them as infected. And there's quite a few times where like doctors and maybe policemen and stuff like that call a person it rather than a man or woman, um because I guess they want to much more distance themselves from this infection. Recently, I think kind of watching this movie is probably another movie where I just want to really like wash my hands consistently. And like god, I just like I really want to wash my hands after watching this movie at some points where it's just like um or just like yeah, it's kind of one of those movies where you just really want to just like if there's a person that is infected and quite possibly be a zombie, like man, I think I'd be like jumping in the shower and washing my hands consistently because I'm like I'd be so worried that I'd be consistently around this person and I could get something by them sneezing or something like that, and that would be horrible for me, especially if it was a loved one and this and that. But God, I really enjoy Arnold's delivery in this movie. I really love like God, is he so wonderful in this film? How he's so compassionate to his daughter, how he is just kind of bringing up stories to maybe make Maggie forget that she's infected. How he is consistently comforting her, and how he's just like he also brings like there's a little bit of like jokes in the movie. There's a little bit of like camaraderie between the cast, and man, does Arnold really bring that in spades. Like he really is just like how of course like Maggie goes, she's like I didn't believe that you would come for me. He's like of course I would have. Arnold does, and it's like you're my daughter, and it's like I'm trying to do whatever we can to like do make the best out of all this. Anyways, yeah, there is throughout this movie some very uneasiness about like, oh my god, is she gonna turn now? Is she gonna turn now? Is she gonna like what's like you're kind of like on your edge of your seat, just kind of going like, when is this person going to turn? When is this person going to come after people? Oh my god. Ugh. You get so uneasy, and but like you still like it still wants you to remember that these people are people, and that's so interesting. It's not just okay, these people quickly turn into zombies and now you have to kill them. No, ultimately Arnold is going out of his way to try to like before he actually goes and attacks people, he's like questioning them. He's like tell me something, tell me, come on. It's like say anything to me, like say like say something to so that way he won't go and like just straight out like think that they're dead. It's like give me the benefit of the doubt, let me know that you're still alive in there. And that's what I enjoy about this film. It feels it feels different than most zombie films just because of scale, just because of small town. I like that aspect of this movie. That's what really changes things about like something simple as okay, a zombie theme, it's been done 800 times by now. But here's how they make it different. Um here's how they make it so it's just like all of a sudden like somebody's just going to the bathroom and things happen. Um, People are trying to just get gas in a gas station and things happen. Um, People are just trying to like uh feel good about themselves in one like uh camp scene or whatever you want to call it, and people feel awkward just because it's like yeah, it really sucks about this whole infection thing. It's like maybe we should just quarantine all these infected people off, and like in quarantine people are sitting right there just going, wow, maybe like goddamn, like I'm not gonna think about nibbling on you, but goddamn, like yeah, these are people. These are people. You know what? In The Walking Dead, um, I would ultimately like quickly dismay and forget and whatever that these zombies are people, because ultimately I was just like, yeah, kill them, the zombies. And whenever there would be time in The Walking Dead where um someone would go, "Oh, but hey, this is my friend. This is my brother. This is my father. This is my sister. My blah blah blah." Like I would just quickly dismiss it just because it's like, well, but they're monsters now. Like kill them, they're monsters. And then one person like, no, that's my dad or whatever. Like in this movie, it's just like it does really make you finally realize with the time invested in this movie that it's like, okay, I can finally understand these people now of the hesitation of going and killing somebody that could eventually be turned into a zombie, because ultimately in their eyes, no matter what, um, maybe this person is still a part of their family, um, even though a portion of them could, or a good portion of their faculties could be gone because they're zombies, or eventually they will turn into this mindless thing that just wants to get a little nibble of that part of you. Reasonably, yeah, I think that is about a bulk of what I could say in a non-spoiler sense. I just got some enjoyment out of this movie. This movie, like, I know it's slow, I know it's sad, but it just kind of won me over. Ultimately, just because of how just like this movie felt different. This movie just didn't feel just like a normal zombie movie. And recently again, people might not say there's enough here in this movie. But I don't know, I just kind of got won over by a simple film. And I guess that's the real queuing up queuing up of which I could talk about this movie for. So, um yeah, and of course, Arnold does kill some zombies. He does it. He murders them, takes them out. Um, but again, for this movie, zombies are people. Zombies are people. So yeah, that's the one takeaway from this movie. So I think with that, I'm going to get into the spoiler variation of this movie. If you want to check out this movie, like I said, it's on Tubi. You can see it for free with ads on that currently to the second of this taping. Reasonably after that, yeah, come back here and watch this film. Or if you want to just hear what goes on regardless anyways, just because maybe you have no interest in this movie or this and that, or you just want to hear things regardless. Let's get into the spoilers of this so I can make a much shorter video instead of making a long-winded review of this. Now, it's spoiler time. It's spoiler time. I'm gonna rhyme because it's that time again to spoil this movie. If you do not want to know what goes on in this movie, then now is your time to probably call this an end. But if you have seen this movie, or you just want to pretend like you did, because maybe you just want to hear my thoughts anyways, regardless, here it all is. So, reasonably in the beginning of this movie, Arnold is just driving around trying to find his daughter. He evidently finds her um in this hospital, and evidently she had gotten bitten, and now she's infected. Reasonably, it doesn't seem to be clearly defined exactly how this girl got this infection. There is little kind of quick little scenes here and there about how she got infected, but there's no clear consensus of like exactly how she got infected. It just seems like it just happens in a little small cut scene, or a little small like quick cut scenes, reflecting back on her getting infected. So Arnold again kind of retrieves his daughter, and they go to their aunt's house, I believe, or Maggie's aunt's house. And reasonably, her aunt has a little girl there that I believe um, had also gotten, I don't want to say infected. Like, I'm assuming she just got, like, she fell down and got a scratch. I'm assuming she's not infected. Anyways, so it gets to the point where there is a lot of time seemingly where like the more and more this girl goes down this road of eventually being more infected, the aunt is kind of like is very much just like scared of her and scared of her like all the time. It gets to a point where like at first she's just like I don't want to see your infection, and I think she plays it off as realistically like oh, I just can't think of her eventually turning into a zombie. I just can't, like, no, I think she just wants to feel much more protected away from her, and she doesn't want to mention that. Like she like is really the first one um to really bring a blade up to her, well, blade aka scissors, to her to maybe go and think about taking her out. All the while Arnold is Arnold. He's like reasonably, supposedly there was a mention of him having a farm, but ultimately he is just kind of like there's set traps and stuff like that to hunt for food. It seems like these guys, like none of them are really having a job. They're just kind of living off this environment because of this outbreak and whatever. It doesn't seem like there's much coming from money and things like that. So I guess it's not a big deal. Anyways, um, so reasonably during this time they're trying to treat life as much as normal as possible. Like Arnold is always trying to comfort Maggie, talk about the good old times, and reminisce about Maggie's mother, and talk about like how like she got her name, um how um how Arnold and Maggie's mother got together, like how he felt like she was like that he was never good enough for her, how like it was all like how she was so beautiful, and how like there was nothing, like he was a no good guy and he wasn't trying to become more intelligent. How like how Maggie's or how his wife was kind of giving books to him and he would never pick them up and read them. Like because I think a lot of the times he would just say like, yeah, it's like I'm just so exhausted with the farm, like I never like I like didn't go out of my way to pick up a good book or whatever. But like God, this woman had everything, and like how she thought of a schmuck like me and whatever, and it came down to the funny aspects of of Maggie bringing up. It's like, well, I think the best part about you was your truck. Yeah, because if anything, it was kind of like the truck never broke down and how numerous times and this and that, whatever, what have you. Anyways, let's go into like Maggie eventually like re meeting up with her friends after getting a doctor's visit or going to the doctor. reasonably, the doctor is mentioning to Arnold that she doesn't have a lot of time, that it's like, well, there's options, but there's very few, and ultimately, like the options aren't good. Arnold's like, well, is there a third option? And it's like, well, end it quickly. And Arnold's like, no, I just can't do that. I just can't. It's my daughter. She's the last thing that I have left of my wife. I just it like it just he just can't get it. He just can't do that. It's just not in him. Um, yeah. So we get to the avenue of now Maggie is with her friends. They're at a bonfire. They're talking about this infection. There's one guy that is just like, how about we just quarantine everybody? And one of the quarantine kids that Maggie is with at this bonfire is mentioning that it's like, well, hey, like he mentions how he got infected and mentions how he eventually wants to go instead of actually getting quarantined. He'd rather just have a relative of his just kind of take him out, meaning in bullet fashion. Where it ends up that Maggie kind of comforts this guy, and otherwise, like, it's like, hey, like we're all scared, like we're all scared about what's going on right now, and this and that, and she's trying to comfort him, and that's really nice. Um, but ultimately, eventually it gets down to the point where this kid that was at this bonfire eventually is very close to turning, and to where Maggie has to go there and to talk him down, um, because there's just another person with just a gun at the door. And so the police end up breaking in and taking this person and taking him down to eventually quarantine. And I'm just like, come on, man. I'm like, you know what? He doesn't get the way that he wants to go. If he feels that he like deserves to go this way, let him have it. Or not really let him have it, but like kind of give him that option. Like don't kind of force him into being quarantined. If like just kind of give him the decision of like, okay, it seems like you are going to turn. Like, hey, if you feel that you want to take uh if you feel that you don't want to go to quarantine, what else can we do with you? Okay, well, I'd rather get shot. Okay, well, yeah, and they can go about that way, not just throw them in quarantine. A horrible thing to do. Anyways, it gets to the point where Maggie's getting worse and worse, and kind of like I said, her aunt eventually gets more and more uncomfortable with Maggie being there, to the point where like it seems like she's getting more and more easily scared of her, and ultimately like she just leaves. She just freaking bails because ultimately, again, like she wants nothing to do with an infected person, so ultimately she's just like bailing. All the while this stuff is also going on, and I forgot to mention this part. Um, Evidently, while Maggie is out and about in on the land or whatever, zombies start to approach Maggie, and ultimately to where she loses a finger, and this happens much earlier in the movie, to where ultimately Arnold is there and is talking to what he believes used to be his neighbors, ultimately realizing that he wants to give these people the benefit of the doubt, give them a last chance, just like, oh, hey, are you still in there? Kind of like, hey, like, talk to me, like, say something. And ultimately, Arnold is just like, okay, well, and then he goes and chops them down and kills them because it's like they're zombies now. To the point where the wife eventually comes a calling and lets Arnold know what actually had happened, how basically um, the kid was turning and the husband just stayed in the room, locked the door, and I think he was just like, I can't kill my daughter, so if my daughter kills me, then that is what it is. Um, but anyways, Eventually, those bodies are collected. The wife is arrested because she kind of like held Arnold at gunpoint to just kind of make her way to see her family. And yeah, so Q going back to where like Maggie had finger loss, and eventually she just kind of like chops off the finger, and then is just like, well, F it, I'm gonna be a zombie eventually anyways, so who cares? Um, anyways, cue us getting more and more to a closer amount of time to where Maggie, it seems like her eyes are turning much more wider. She's seemingly getting much more infected to where the point the aunt has left because of how scary she thinks that Maggie is. Ultimately, to where Arnold is just trying to comfort her and again, like represent that, like, that his mother's like or her mother's garden is flourishing because of what Maggie had told him and this and that. Putting in daisies in the garden that her mother had was kind of really nice and really like okay, like, well, if Maggie goes, then at least she'll always have this garden to maybe see in the afterlife and come back to it, and it's really nice. It's really nice. Anyways, we have Arnold that is kind of getting all these people that are putting into his face that, like, this girl needs to be quarantined or this girl needs to be put down. Do something, make a decision, whatever. And Arnold is just going through this and he's like, no one's gonna take my daughter. Like, I will frickin' kill a man if I have to. No one's going to take my daughter away from me. And ultimately, the freaking police just are like, yeah, I think she's pretty close to being quarantined. Like, we gotta do something with this girl. And Arnold's like, no. Like, let me decide what I'm going to, like, um, let me take care of her. Like, she's not gonna go just yet. I'm not gonna let her go just yet. And it ends up being a freaking battle between Arnold and this cop, and they're going at it, and he's choking him and stuff like that. And they're like, I'm like, come on, you really gonna truly fight Arnold freaking Schwarzenegger? Are you serious right now? But okay, because the cop like tackles him, and then they have this like kind of like scuffle down on the ground, and like Arnold is grabbing his axe and choking him, and like the other cop is just like, oh hey, come on man, like come on, like we weren't gonna try and do this, like come on, all we needed to know if Maggie is okay. And Maggie presents herself, and like it's like, okay, hey, she's okay, everything's good, like we were really pressing this and we probably shouldn't have, like, but like the cop was still like, hey, like she's looking pretty close, like come on, like you have to figure out something that you're gonna do, Arnold, character guy, whoever. You have to figure this out, and you have to figure this out pretty soon. Well, it gets down to the point where Maggie is struggling to breathe, and ultimately, like, the doctor is handing him the like quarantined medication that is supposedly going to be horrific. It's better to just kind of put a gun to this person, and ultimately, like, Arnold is just like, he's sitting on this seat, and he's just like, ugh, like, he's so like just exhausted by like thinking about like his daughter and this and that, and like all everything that's going on with the fighting and this and that, trying to keep his daughter here. And ultimately, like, the creepiest thing is you have Maggie that eventually comes down these steps, and she looks like really like scary at this point, and ultimately to the fact where it's like, oh my god, is this gonna end, is this how it's gonna end, with her getting a little delicious nibble out of Arnold? What's gonna happen here? And ultimately she just kisses him on the forehead, and then just walks up to the top of this house, and then um jumps off. That's how the movie ends. And I'm like, man, that's like, I don't know if that's gonna be a good thing because ultimately she might still be infected or whatever, or maybe that whatever. I don't know if that's really gonna do the do Mountain Dew, I guess. But anyways, yeah, this is a really intriguing movie. I really like it. Just won me over, like I said, and ultimately, yeah, it might not be like the best zombie movie you've ever seen in your life, but it just felt different to me. It felt simple, but it felt very heartwarming. It felt like, okay, like this isn't just like mindless zombies and we're not mindless people, and we're like gonna go about this and try to do this, like try to go about doing this the right way. We're not just trying to go after people, and we're not trying to this and that. Like everybody has their thing, but it's always within reason. Um and this and that. So yeah, that's kind of how I felt about this movie, kind of how I overall talked about. Usually I just talk generically about the movie, and then I pretty much go through scene to scene of the movie. Um, Ultimately, kind of like picking out some things that I liked about it. I think ultimately it'd be probably better off if I just like commentated over an entire movie, because that's kind of how I kind of review things, anyways. But anyways, yeah, I like again. This movie is like I wasn't blown away by this movie. It just kind of won me over. So ultimately, this movie might not be for everybody. Everybody might think it's slow or sad or whatever, and that's completely fine. But this movie just ultimately just kind of um, it won me over via simplicity. It won me over via the stories. It won me over via the just presenting the way it was presented. It was just kind of like um it's not like 30 zombies in a room, you got to kill all of them, and then you open a door and there's 30 other zombies and you have to kill all of them. Like it's not like a mindless movie. It's a zombie movie with heart, I guess we could really say is what it was. And that's what I liked about it. So anyways, I'm gonna call this one because it's a long recording, and at the end of the day, I probably should have made it that long. So goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.